Sidekicks. What's there to say? Actually, a better question would be sidekicks. What's to be done with them? Because when I look back on old and recent sidekicks, a common pattern I found with them is that they're mostly presented as childish, foolish, or cowardly, or a combination of the three. And in superhero movies, most of the time, sidekicks are shown to be people of color. This pattern means that they're dead weight to the perfect and/or mature hero, and only used for either comedic effect or to have one moment of heroism while being slightly helpful. It goes against the criteria of what would make a sidekick a good sidekick. Now, I have to say, it's hard to define a good sidekick, because it's truly subjective. But I would call a good sidekick someone who is vital to the plot in some ways to make it not seem forced, likable and funny, adds conflict, comforting, and above all, helpful to the hero or heroes on multiple levels and occasions. With good sidekicks, one or two of the criteria can be ignored and it would still be a good sidekick. Sidekicks such as Ellie from The Last of Us, Tails from the Sonic franchise, and Sam from the MCU are all examples of how amazing and terrible sidekicks can be, as how people of color are treated alongside heroes. So without further ado, let's go! Sidekicks in media are sometimes represented well, but when they're not, they are not. Sidekicks are almost always made childish, or more naive, shall we say, in kids' TV shows and video games to be more child-friendly. With more adult and teen media such as Marvel, things go on the more racist side of things. Let's begin with debatably the worst sidekick ever, MJ from Spider-Man PS4. MJ is shown to be dumb, naive, and foolish. I don't even know whether to classify her as a sidekick. I think it's because she wants to be your partner and not a sidekick, but it's close enough. She actively puts her own life at risk instead of letting Spider-Man do the work, which he could have done faster, stealthier, and with less consequences than someone with no superpowers. So MJ is a pretty useless character, barely fitting the criteria. Moving on from that, let's go to a sidekick who has had a long history of changes. Tails from the Sonic franchise. Tails is given a bad reputation in the Sonic fandom, but only due to Sega making him debatably one of the worst sidekicks ever in recent Sonic games. One example is the Sonic game made in 2017, Sonic Forces, one of the more recent Sonic games. And this is the first cutscene of Tails. Him cowering and being pretty useless, since he's just not doing anything. That's just one instance, right? Wrong! Later, Tails cowers again when faced with an enemy named Chaos, and calls Sonic to save him, like a child. Well, he is a child, but you know what I mean. There are only small moments where Tails is actually a good help. He becomes a tour guide for one hero to reunite with the second hero, and he tells the third hero exactly how to save the world, and offers the occasional help by hacking technology, whatever he does. Just because Tails did all these things doesn't really make him a good sidekick, it just makes him a good tour guide, and a good soldier. It just seems confusing that Sega made Tails express cowardice when faced with a threat he's dealt with multiple times, but yet he's fearless all of a sudden, when midway through the game, he just waltzes into an enemy base, only being accompanied with this guy! Just to hack the technology there. Tails in this game doesn't fit criteria all that much when it comes to being a sidekick. Now, I think I should explain sidekicks that make exceptions to criteria, but yet work, such as Olaf from Frozen and Penfold from Danger Mouse. Olaf from Frozen is comedic, has a good relationship with the main character, being wise and comforting to them, and is vital to the story in multiple instances. Although he's not as smart as some mechanical genius or has the strength of an Animal Crossing character, adults are probably like, what? What is that? Anywho, the scene that explains what Olaf offers the most is when he's comforting Anna by the fire. Firstly, being clever enough to unlock a door with a carrot, like how? Secondly, he gives her advice about love and what it is. Since Anna has limited experience with love, Olaf is giving her advice that she needs to know, and afterwards, he finds her a way out of the castle to help her progress. I know people are going to make the argument of, that's just one instance, that's less than what you gave Tails in Sonic Forces. Tails is, well, supposed to be a more serious character than a snowman who talks. And there are more instances than just that one time that Olaf offers help in the Frozen series. In the first movie, he reminds Elsa what she can do with snow, he helps establish friendships in the first movie, and does the same in the second movie, I add, while giving the audience a good laugh, of course. Which is enough to make him fit some of the criteria very well, while not being a serious sidekick. Moving on to Penfold, something slightly more serious. Penfold's presented as smart and vigilant, helping the hero Danger Mouse make proper and mature decisions. Despite having these good traits, Penfold is shown to be extremely cowardly and physically weak. This can be seen in the intro to this show. He's seen right next to Danger Mouse, hands out, screaming in fear, until Danger Mouse saves him. It gives you the impression that Danger Mouse saves Penfold quite a lot in the show. Even though he has these traits, he's overall a good sidekick, because being cowardly can be an exception if you exceed in other criteria very well, which is Penfold's case exactly. He's mature, smart, comforting, while being a tiny bit of a comic relief. Okay. I didn't want to talk about this, but I can't not talk about it. I think I should now address something that's a bit more problematic. In superhero media and wacky high school movies, they have this thing in common, that sidekicks are mostly shown to be people of color. An article by Jasmine Berg explains it's not fair to drive actors of color to play sidekicks or supporting roles, because usually when people think of colored girls in film, they think of the term sassy black girl or angry black girl with little to no character depth whatsoever. If you look at 2015's High School Musical, the two main black characters are made to be friends with the main protagonists and didn't show that much depth and relatability, to be honest. Moving on to superhero media, they're not that much better. In the Christian Bale Batman trilogy, Lucius Fox, played by Morgan Freeman, we barely know anything about him except being the guy who gives Batman stuff.
I just took the calling it the Bat. And yes, Mr. Wayne, it does come in black.
With Rhodes, he's always put in the light of helping Iron Man when things are too much for him, and in Iron Man 3, he shows up at the final fight to help Tony when Tony's just about to lose. With Sam, there's more to take into thought. Although Sam's origin story in The Winter Soldier was better than the story he was given, which is that he was a former pimp in his comic counterpart. In the movies, he's portrayed as a sidekick character to Captain America. In Age of Ultron, Sam's only shown for one scene, and the rest of it, he's just off camera, tracking down Bucky Barnes. And in Ant-Man, he truly shows himself as a sidekick that when he loses the confrontation of Ant-Man breaking in, he reports to not tell Captain America what happened.
It's really important to me that Cap never finds out about this.
These people would be considered good sidekicks, but people tend to look at them as characters who are cast aside and shouldn't be sidekicks, since it gives people of color that they should just be cast aside or be a lackey to the white hero. In that same article by Jasmine Burke, this chart is shown to determine the ratio of white population in the USA to white lead actors, and the ratio of minority ethnicity population in the USA to minority ethnicity lead actors. And the minority ethnicity lead actors are less than the population of people of minority ethnicity. That's pretty sad, because the population is already low enough, as you can see on the chart. This is a big issue in today's media. It actually reminds me of this very harsh fact that most of the lead actors who win Oscars are white people. It's just sad, honestly. But with sidekicks directed to be in media aimed at younger viewers or for a more family-oriented audience, they make most sidekicks deliberately dumb or childish to make the target audience feel better about themselves, and bring a laugh. In the article, Hollywood's comedy sidekicks, funny or problematic, says that they are fools of our era, within the comedy genre but also outside of it, that they are clowns that laugh as we laugh at them, willfully blind to the fact that it is at their expense. Writers for these characters miss the fact that sidekicks are not supposed to be made to only be annoying and almost no help at all. They ignore making them good sidekicks, because it would ruin the whole niche of making the audience feel better about themselves. And the audience clearly doesn't want to feel inferior to someone that's supposed to be made to help the main hero. But when the media just makes the sidekicks pathetic and not funny, it just makes them annoying, and is an example of poor character writing. As a writer, I can say this: when you make a character, you only make them pathetic and not funny if they're supposed to be. Sidekicks on the hero's side generally shouldn't be pathetic and unfunny, or even sidekicks on the villain's side. Sidekicks on the villain's side can be comedic as well as smart. Believe it or not, but sidekicks are changing in most recent media. Ellie from The Last of Us series has always been an example of a good sidekick, because she fits the criteria of it very well. She is supportive of the main character Joel when she needs to be, she confronts him for making wrong decisions, she doesn't entirely steal the spotlight from Joel until the sequel because the game is only centered around her, she actually adds conflict and is vital to the stories of both games. And when movies have sidekicks involved, the sidekicks themselves are changing. To have his break from forces, let's go to Tails again, in a more recent piece of media. Such as the recent Sonic movie, of course. From what I can tell so far, this is making him the good sidekick that he was destined to be. There isn't much to say about the recent Sonic movie since it's literally just come out and I doubt any of us here in this class have watched it, but what I can say is that what we've seen so far of it, Tails is proving to be useful and offering intelligence, being vital to the story, and being a slight comedic relief, while also being kinda adorable. This also weaves into what I said earlier, because Sega is actually caring about how the fans view Tails. They have learned what not to do with Tails through forces, so they're not only doing the character better, they care enough to put the voice actress who's played Tails for 8 years to play in this movie alongside Ben Schwartz, Idris Elba, and freaking Jim Carrey. Tails can be viewed as not only a sign of sidekicks changing in media, but as a sign of Sega respecting their fans by changing what needs to be changed and keeping what needs to be kept. That is one good sidekick. Through all these changes, I think it's safe to say that sidekicks are going to be made more diverse and independent in the future, as well as more of them fitting the criteria to achieve being a good sidekick. But there's always going to be the ones that make the exceptions, of course. It's pretty clear that all sidekicks come in many forms. There can be a talking snowman, a talking fox, a talking vaccine, a talking heart, a man in a flight suit, or a horse. Don't ask. Whatever the case may be, I'm personally excited for what the future holds for these characters and new ones that'll jump in and have their moment. Thank you all so much for watching this video, it means a lot to me. Goodbye everyone, I'll see you all in my next video, and stay safe out there.